we know that reality is subject to influence. We know that the primary method most people use to try to influence is logically derived, grabbing hold of what's in front of them and trying to bend it into shape, when obviously the system has far more resources to render things in, outside of the elf's ability to try to chop down the tree. So if the primary, let's call it vehicle / methodology, which you referred to earlier, is what we would call intent, is there a way that you could define that a little more and perhaps give us a way of being able to use or develop intent in a way that allows us to modify future probability in the reality, rather than be left into what we would call kind of by me, like it has to happen by me and sort of grab hold of stuff?
The rendering engine that makes this virtual reality needs the information about what's likely to happen next, so then it can be ready for next. In other words, it's rendering, and it needs to know it's an awful big virtual reality, and it's a lot of detail. So it needs all the help it can get, and it needs to know what is likely to happen next, so it gets prepared for that, so it can render it and make this all a smooth game that works. In order to do that, it creates this virtual reality, or this database called probable future. It's just a database. Okay, and that's the system's best guess at what's likely to happen next, so that it can be prepared when and if that happens. Now, we have free will, so what it thinks is likely to happen next doesn't necessarily have to happen next. So when we do something unexpected, then it'll have to go back and fix that database. Whatever. If we do something novel, then it'll have to redo with that novel thing done, change the database a little bit and all the things that might affect, but then it's got its database back. So it does that. So it keeps this database of everything that possibly could happen and the probability that it will happen. This virtual reality is a probabilistic reality, not a deterministic reality. It's a top-down probability model. Okay, it's the only thing that'll work. So it has to have that database. Now, when it has this database of all the things that could happen and the probability that they would, it's a probability model. As time goes on, that database turns into everything that could have happened and the probability that it would have. In other words, you get a past database out of it just because time's gone on, and that future, what was probable future for tomorrow, a week later now is, 6 days gone. So now all that same probability is in the past. Everything that could have happened and the probability it would have happened, the past database. So you have this big database up there that has all this information in it. That's the information that's all available to you on the intuitive side. And that information is extremely thorough. Everything, everybody, probable futures, past, even probable pasts, things that didn't happen but could have, and all the probabilities. Now, in the Vedic culture, those are called the Akashic records. Okay, but they're just databases that are a result of a virtual reality that the system has to have, because it's a probabilistic reality. It needs to keep these probabilities handy. So those databases are things that we can get into with our intent, and that gives us information that we can use in our daily life. Besides that, there's a feedback mechanism that's in this virtual reality, because any good schoolhouse, and this is a schoolhouse for, entropy reduction trainer, virtual reality, every good schoolhouse has to have feedback. You have to let the kids know how they're doing. That's really the purpose of tests, not to give grades so much as to tell your kids what they need to learn, where they're missing it. Do they really have the concepts? If not, well, you have to study a little harder and so on. Well, our reality has that too. And the feedback mechanism is that we modify the probabilities in that future probability with our intent. So as we have an intention for something to take place, then our intention actually changes that probability that it will take place and makes it more likely. Things begin to adjust. Actors move, things move all over the board because the probabilities are now a little different. So that's how we can modify our reality. One, by getting information that is available to us, and by modifying the future probability. Now, there's a thing called the placebo effect that is such a mainstream thing that drug companies can't market a drug unless it's beaten the placebo effect. The placebo effect is the effect of people changing their reality with their intents. So you tell somebody that this pill that you're going to give them, you're a doctor, and you say, here, take this pill. It's brand new. It works miracles. It's wonderful. Everybody that takes this pill, their liver starts to work better. So if you have that positive attitude, oh, good, I got a pill that's going to make me feel better and it's going to change my liver to work better, then that positive attitude actually makes your liver better. And not just that you think it's better or you pretend that it's better, it really makes your body change. Placebo effect. You can affect things that are physical with your intent. If you really, really want the sun to come out next Saturday because you've got a big picnic plan for your family, if you put enough energy into that, you can raise the probability of sunshine for that picnic. But of course, there's a bunch of farmers who really need the rain for their crops. They're going to be putting energy into it raining on Saturday. So what happens on Saturday depends on how much probability is moved by how many people in which directions. And that's what is most likely to happen then. So that's how you heal, is you use your intent to raise the probability of better health. Because the way new things happen is that a random draw from a probability distribution of the possibilities. So you look at all the possibilities that things can happen, all the probabilities that they can happen, and new things happen by taking a random draw out of that probability distribution. Now, that random draw means the things that are most likely, have the highest probabilities, are the most likely ones to get pulled in that random draw. Okay. So that's the way the system works. And because of that, that means, like I told you, that this world that we look at, this world that we see on the news, that's a reflection of us, because our intentions help create that world. It changes things to represent us. If you are a very positive person, then positive things will happen to you. If you're a very negative person, have a lot of negativity, oh, woe is me, the only luck I have is bad luck, and I always get the bad deals. And if you have that kind of a negative attitude, that's what will happen to you. That's the way your life will be. The things you fear, you manifest. You manifest the things you fear. If the thing that scares you most of all is that your children will grow up to be drug addicts, then you will do things as a parent that will actually push them in that direction. You do things that help manifest your fears because you modify reality with your intent. And if your intent is negative and fearful, you will manifest negative and fearful things. If your intent is to be healthy, then you'll be healthy. People have a real positive intent on their health, don't get sick. Everybody else in their household gets the flu, but they don't, because they have a positive intent that that's just not going to happen. So the probability of it happening is less. So that's how you can modify your environment of what's going on, whether it rains, whether you're sick, whether you're not. So you have a lot of effect over what happens in your life. You are where you are right now. The person you are right now is basically the sum of all the choices you've made in the past. So If you don't like where you are right now, well, it's the choices you made in the past. It's what's gotten you there. And as Peter says, we have to take responsibility for all those choices. If you say, that so-and-so makes me angry, well, nobody can make you angry. Being angry is a choice. You choose to be angry. You choose to be angry because of the fears and the self-centeredness and expectations and beliefs and all that stuff that you have. That's you. That's your stuff. And that's what makes you angry. Nobody else can. So it's same about happy. If you choose to be happy, you will be happy. You can be happy no matter what's going on in your life. You can be positive. You see, so to a large degree, you create your own reality. Now, you don't create it entirely because this is a multiplayer game. You're in this game with a lot of other players, and they'll do things that affect you, and you'll do things that'll affect them. So a lot of what happens in your life is just random stuff that, I call that the social Brownian motion. It's random stuff that happens because somebody somewhere made a choice that caused somebody else to do something else, which caused this and that and so on. And finally it gets to you and it affects you as well. And you have to deal with that. Again, the key is, how do you deal with it? Not where did it come from, but how do you deal with it? Doesn't matter where it comes from. It's how do you deal with it? So you have to take responsibility for everything, for your life, for the way you are. Most of your illnesses are your responsibility. You've created most of those out of stress. Stress is just negativity. Things aren't the way you want them. Oh no, that's terrible. Because what you want, of course, is very important to you. That's called ego, self-centeredness. So if we get rid of that ego and self-centeredness and fear, then we don't have stress. Things happen and turn out differently than we expect. That's okay. We just don't mind. We can go with that flow. We can make the best of it. We can find joy in it. We can learn from it. And some of that stuff may even be awful tough, but you can learn from it. Peter's the poster boy for that sort of thing. He's had his share of that kind of opportunity. That tough stuff that happens, and you make the best of it. You learn from it. You grow from it. That's important. So life isn't all scripted for you. It's not like, well, this thing was just handpicked for you to have this problem so you can grow up. It's not all scripted. For some people, it is largely scripted. For most people, it is not. It's just a little bit scripted. It's hard to script something for somebody who has free will and is interacting with a lot of other people who have free will. That's really hard to script because people can make all kinds of choices, and how that bounces around in a social system is hard to say. But all of that stuff going on with all those choices give us this wonderful degree of diversity of choice. And that's where our opportunity is to grow up and to learn. So it's not all planned. It's not all scripted. It's not like, well, this thing happened, because I need it. Well, if you look at it that way, you'll find it's mostly true. Things happen to you because you need them. But that's not really the way it works. The way it works is whatever happens, you can learn from it. Anything that happens to you has its educational side, has its growing up side. It depends on how you deal with it. And then we look back at it in hindsight and say, oh yeah, that was just exactly what I needed right at that time. Well, everything is just what you need at just the time you get it. You see, because everything challenges you to make good choices. So it's not that you're living in a scripted world that's just made for you to have choices, but everything in your life that happens and the way other people bump into you from the choices they have made and all of that, every bit of it, the happy parts, the hard parts, the easy parts, they're all there, and you get to make your choices about how you're going to react to it, how you're going to deal with it. So it's all your responsibility, and life just throws opportunity at you every minute of every day. And it's fun. Growing up is just really fun.